Hey everyone, Mr. Happy here, and welcome to Mondays with Mr. Happy, aka Mr. Happy Mondays, the weekly Q&A show where you ask me questions and I answer them. We are on the eve of patch 6.3, and that means it's going to be a very busy week. I apologize for your subscriber inboxes this week, but you know me, I'm going to be churning out guides to pretty much everything I can, opinion pieces, state of the realm, and when Ultimate comes out in a couple of weeks, every time we beat a phase, every time we get to like a new Enrage, it's going to be a busy time for me. So I'm really looking forward to it. Hopefully you are too. It's such a strong way to start the new year. And you know what? That's exactly what we need going into 2023. I said last week, I think 2023 is going to be a good year. Something in my gut tells me, regardless of any things that get us down, we are going to get back up and kick some booty in 2023. Speaking of which, I did say I'd be selling out a bit more this year. I mean, it's all my usual stuff. I'm just going to be a little bit more responsible with my sponsored segments and the number of options. I mentioned it last week. You guys know how it goes. So, quick little bit before we go on to the questions. First of all, thank you to our sponsors over on Patreon for supporting. They do not have to. All of my content is available for free here on YouTube. If you enjoy it here, watch it here. Don't have to think twice about that. But hey, there's some people over there that like to support us extra. We also had a $1 thanks/tip on last week's video. Really like watching all your videos. Thank you to you, Coco. Appreciate that. And as for our other sponsors, we actually have some light news that's relatively recent. My Green Chef sponsorship is going away January 14th, so the next weekly Q&A will not have that sponsor. If you're in the US and you want ingredients sent to you to cook healthy, diet-centric meals at home, things that are like paleo or keto friendly, be sure to check that out. I cooked some live on stream the other week, and I've been using services like this for ages. It's a subsidiary of HelloFresh, and I've used HelloFresh literally for like the last 3 years. So of course I was going to take a sponsor for something like that. But if you're interested, there's a discount code in the description. I of course get kickback for that. And if you've used the service or are interested in the service, that's some pretty cool stuff. I made this like spaghetti squash. You know, they send you the spaghetti squash and then you like peel it with the fork once it's cooked. And then instead of noodles, you have that. It was really good, along with some chicken and some really good sauces that they had with that as well. We of course have our Steel Series sponsor as well, 12% discount code. We have that all the time. If they ever do a new product this year, I will be doing a video on it. And Advanced GG actually just released some gummy vitamins. They have stuff for like, you know, joint health, just general multivitamins, stuff like that. And so my 30% discount is enabled for that. I actually have my hydration formula, the one that I drink the most, right here. I'll be drinking that between takes because I'm feeling a bit parched at the moment. But that 30% code is currently enabled, so be sure to check that out as well. Anyway, now that I'm done making that money, let's answer some questions. And on to our first question, hashtag Happy Monday, Mr. With. That one almost threw me for a loop. Hope you're having a good week. You know what? Not a hello, but a well wish. I'll take it. I'm part of a group of newbies trying to get comfortable to try out a current raid tier. We're cutting our teeth on some extremes. My question to you is there a Savage tier you might recommend that provides a good basis for understanding how Savage tier fights work? A good starting point. Deltascape. Omega's Deltascape. Definitely the tier. So Alexander the Creator was our first kind of easy, as you know, hardcore raiders like to call it, Savage tier. It's something closer to what we have now versus the like Gordius, Midas, and before that days. So Deltascape was the first raid tier in a new expansion right after they had started approaching that sort of design philosophy on Savage. So the very first fight is regularly regarded to be the easiest Savage that's ever been made, so much so that it was beaten in a single pull by several groups. Heck, I did it in the Party Finder in like 45 minutes even. So, and when the Party Finder can do something brand new in 45 minutes, you know. You know. But the rest of the fights are both quality as well as just on the easier side. So it's a much better kind of ease into it. Now, I will say that the fourth fight in that tier is actually pretty tough and maybe a little overwhelming, but all fourth fights are going to be that way to some capacity. So you're going to have to break them in at some point, and that's probably one of the better ones to do it with. Hashtag Happy Mondays. It's going to be different every time. Hi, Mr. Happy. Hi. Just wanted to say thank you for all the content. Thank you for watching. Really like the end of last Q&A where you talked about pride in helping others. Hope this year can make justice to your name and make you a happy miss. Oh, so there's no question. It's just a well, I mean, no, thank you for the well wish, but you know, I obviously started reading it before. Yeah, I mean, I felt like that was really important to say last week. Like I said last week, I've learned a lot in these past several years of having to take on what I've had to take on. So I'm just going to keep doing my best. I mean, nothing else we can do. And like I said, I got a good feeling about 2023. So well wishes to you as well, and wishing you a good 2023. Dude, my eyes are feeling like really dry. So sorry if you see me doing this a fair bit in the middle of the recording. Hashtag Mr. Happy Monday. Hi, Haps. Hi. Hope you and your mother are doing well. We're doing, like I said, we got plans in motion. We just got to get through this month. My question to you is, how do you think they will evolve or improve on healer skills? It seems to me that healers have just about everything you could want other than, of course, DPS skills. Maybe they could go the route of buffing allies, but that's already Astro's job identity. The big thing with healers is they're going to frequently, and I say frequently, but I mean whenever they need to make some sort of major adjustment that feels somewhat evolutionary to the jobs, is they're going to change the way you access power. That's the big way that Final Fantasy XIV does its job balancing and job adjustments as a whole, is it's all about getting you to a point where it feels different to access your power, even if the skills are largely the same. Great example being Dark Knight versus Warrior. You can look at them and kind of break them down to very similar components, but the way that you play Dark Knight optimally and the way you play Warrior optimally, their access to their power is quite different, even if their end skills that they get to that are somewhat similar. So that's what I think they're going to constantly do. No, I don't think they're going to lean them into more DPS skills, but I do think they'll lean them into more utilities that are dual DPS and healing. Skills like Pneuma, for example, or Macrocosmos, or the Star. Stuff that makes you feel good for pressing it, or a size. There's quite a few of them at this point. Skills that you can press for the damage, but you're also pressing for the healing and the other utility that it brings. Or a GCD that does as much damage as your usual GCD, Pneuma being the more premier example here, and Macrocosmos, that you're using for the healing aspect, but you're still using the GCD on DPS. So you get to make both of those decisions intelligently. And then there are some situations where you can use it strictly for DPS. We saw that with DSR, especially with Astro, Macrocosmos, the cards and everything. So there's room for stuff like that, and I think that's the direction they're going to head. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hey, Haps. Hi. Hello. Hi. How are you? Hi. Hey, you're doing well. Great. Good. Awesome. Amazing. Sure, you're over all these questions related to LB3. Listen, I'm sure I'm over most of the questions I get every week, but I still answer them. But I will say this. There is, before I even read it, because I don't want to say this after reading it, there is a pretext where it's like, I answer a question, I give kind of like a thought on the general question, but then I start being given like fringe situations where maybe something could work. And at that point, I'm just like, yeah, but that's a fringe situation. And like, we don't want to deliberately design for those. You do occasionally, but so that can sometimes get a little bit more taxing on my, like, how am I even going to answer this? What are your thoughts on making a change to LB3 where they all deal roughly the same base DPS, but they tack on some impactful utility? Then I'll say the same thing I said last week, but just in a different way. Whichever utility is best is going to get used the most. That's it. And there, as much as people like to think stuff like, you know, max HP, heal over time, skill speed, you'll never use a skill speed, spell speed buff. So throw that one out the window. Melee LB giving bloodbath, LBs lasting until death. Yeah, no, see, none of that's going to work because there's only ever going to be one option. There's still going to be one that is infinitely better than every other one. And you're still going to have to use it for its premier function. So unless you're saying make them all DPS LBs and there's no more actual healer, no more actual tank LB3, then yeah, no, it's still going to achieve the same thing. No matter what you do, it doesn't matter how you change them, there will always be a best, a numerically best one. And you will still just only use them in those exact situations as we do now, and it won't change anything. It's just how it is. It's just the nature of having a button you can only press once or twice a battle on average. Whatever is best, you're going to use. And the idea people are trying to float is making it so something isn't always best. But I can tell you right now, in an MMO, that idea almost never works. Or it comes at the cost of something else. So I don't think there's any solution to LB3s. I don't think any suggestion is going to change that, because even if they worked in a completely different way, there will still always be one that is absolute best. So outside of getting straight to the ultimate homogeny of it, it's just going to be the way it is no matter what. It wasn't even a question before this. There was a quote unquote not sponsored hashtag not sponsored, but it didn't say not sponsored. It said hashtag not spawn. But then I realized that it was like the sponsor was like, it was weird. It was jumbled around like everyone's been jumbling around the hashtag thing, but it confused. But it was just like about meat procurement. I started reading the whole thing. I was like, okay. And I was like, wait a minute. What am I doing? I was like, I could just read this on my own. So I did see your comment, person who confused the heck out of me with that hashtag. But I'm going to move on to another question, and that'll be information for me, like you said. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Ayo, happy. Hi. Hope this year is starting on a good foot for you. It's got its ups and downs, but you know what? I'm working through it. I've noticed lately as I've gotten older that my motivation to play games has slowly diminished to a point where I'll go weeks without feeling the itch to play a game. Well, I'm not sure if you've experienced the same feeling. I'd still like to ask, do you have any suggestions for potentially revitalizing that spark during the downtimes of motivation? I'm a firm believer of do not force yourself to be motivated to do something. Yeah, sometimes you have to persevere through motivation or lack of motivation to get something done. But I am a huge advocate for if it doesn't feel natural, if it doesn't feel right, you don't do it. I know for me, it's a bit different because my motivation to play games is largely tied to the content that I'll create on YouTube or post over on the VOD channel. Speaking of which, Harvestella has been getting uploaded, and I have the rest of Final Fantasy 4, 5, and 6 to post over there as well, ready to go. And I've already started on 7, so bear that in mind for those of you who may be subscribed to the VOD channel or not subscribed to the VOD channel. But for me, I have more of a creative motivation problem where I need to think of like ideas for videos, or if I want to do an idea, or abandoning ideas because I don't think they're good. And I don't try to force a motivation. Like I don't sit here and go, oh, I need to be motivated to do videos. If I can't really think of anything, I find other ways to feel creative in life. And so in your case, if you're not feeling motivated to play games, I look for another entertainment outlet, something that just achieves that feeling, because forcing yourself to try to be motivated or to get into something that you're not really into is a way to hate it more, in my opinion, because you're forcing yourself. So instead you do something else, and then eventually you get tired of that thing and your motivation to do the first thing comes back. That's what I do with cooking. I cook 2-3 times a day now, just to try and make sure I have something creative happening in my head. That I feel like I'm making something, I need that feeling more than anything else. But I don't just look for it in games. I decided to look for it someplace else. So that's my number one recommendation. I don't have recommendation for making yourself more motivated during downtimes between games. It's to find something entertainment wise that occupies that space when you're not feeling motivated to play games. I think that's just a healthier overall outlook, at least in my opinion. Hashtag Lunas with Senor. I like how you went with everything is Spanish except for with. Hello there, Mr. Happy. Hello. Just a small question. I'm currently gwib hunting. I know you mean the mount, gwibbers. And only missing the Seed of Sacrifice one. I assume you got all trial mounts, so which one has been the biggest pain? I don't know if I'd consider any of them that big of a pain. I mean, maybe Ruby Weapon, because it was, it's 2 5-minute fights. And if you wipe on the second half, you're doing the 5 minutes again. I'd say that and Emerald were probably pretty high on the list for pains, but honestly, any of them I have to run 99 times is always, even if I like the fight, going to be a pain. Seed of Sacrifice, I had to run 99 times to get that one. But I don't have much of an answer for that. So yeah, I'm going to have to go with Ruby Weapon because the fight just wasn't as good to farm as other fights. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hi, Happy. Hello. Hope you're doing well, and thank you so much for your comment at the end of the video last week. It really struck close to home in a good way. I'm glad it did. My question is in regards to Deep Dungeon. Is it better to farm Ether Pool just by repeatedly going from floors 50 to 60 in matched parties or solo? I find that queues for higher floors are super dead by the time I'm on and trying to grind for more Ether Pool, and when I finally get matched with people, I'll drop a, hey, can we try to get all the silver chests? Usually met with a resounding silence. So my number one recommendation would be to do a floor 50 to 200 climb with a group of friends. As long as your Ether Pool is around 60-ish, then you should gain a lot. And with the agreement, of course, that you'll stop and open silvers. It's always been kind of tough to motivate people in pugs to do silver chests, except when the deep dungeon is brand new. Orthos won't or Orthos, I keep adding an R, won't have that problem when it initially comes out, but it will have that problem somewhere down the line when people just want to use it for leveling and doing those floors over and over again. That being said, if you're already doing solo for Necromancer, I would say you can do both at the same time pretty reliably, because those higher floors are going to give you the better chance for the skill up, so it's definitely valuable getting to those higher floors. You might not be able to clear it if you're not 99 $49.99, but you're going to get a lot of progress every time, and you can get pot shards, and that allows you to go back in again. So yeah, you can do either or, but the best way, in my opinion, which is not the licensed best way that like a deep dungeoner might tell you to do it, I don't know what that answer is to find a group of friends and to do 50 through 200 together. If you can't do that though, you can just solo. And I know that Angelus Demoness, who by the way has a Palace of the Dead 171 to 180 run on AGDQ this coming Friday. If you didn't know that, be sure to tune in. I don't know the time. I'd have to look at the schedule to know it. I don't know it off the top of my head. He has a video on Ether Pool farming. So Angelus Demoness Ether Pool in the search bar, and that should get you your best possible answer. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hey Haps, hi, long-time watcher, first-time asker, welcome. My question is in regards to dots and increased damage buffs. Using Bard as an example, does Raging Strikes before applying dots add 15% damage across the entire dot, or just at the initial impact? Additionally, if it is the dot itself, does Iron Jaws reapply? No, Iron Jaws does not reapply. Iron Jaws is not actually an extension of the buff. It is a full reapplication, a re-snapshot, if you will. So if you have no buffs up when you Iron Jaws, and you had buffed dots up before that, you'll overwrite the buffed dots with the unbuffed dots. So it's something to bear in mind. So the way the game works, I guess actually I should have answered this sort of in reverse, is the game snapshots your buffs at the time of dot application. So if all of your buffs are up when you apply a dot, that dot will be buffed until it is either overwritten or it is or until it wears off. But if you don't have buffs, you apply the dots, and then you buff, it won't work. You'd need to reapply with something like Iron Jaws. Generally, I haven't played Bard since 6.1. It hasn't been that long, but generally what most openers will do is you use 2 of your buffs in your first, after your first GCD, which is one of your dot applications. And then before your buffs wear off, you'll reapply Iron Jaws. What we actually used to do was do both our dots, instantly do Iron Jaws again, and then Iron Jaws later. But our dots were way more of our damage back then. Now you just make sure that the buffed ones get a full duration by applying them inside of things like Trick Attack while you have Raging Strikes, while you have all your Bard buffs, while you're getting buffs from your teammates. And then they'll run the rest of that duration, the 45 seconds, and then you'll refresh them at the end when, they're about to wear off. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hey there, Happy. Hi. Hope you're all prepared for this patch. As prepared as I'm going to be, I think. My question is about the PvP rewards. When doing Crystalline Conflict, you get your series rewards. The problem is I wind up collecting more trophy crystals than I can spend. Is there materia or anything you can sell with trophy crystals? I forget. There might be materia at the very least. It comes down to buying things I don't care for just to get rid of them. This includes wolf mark. Yeah, wolf marks are way worse. Is there any word or ideas on adding new trophy crystals and or wolf mark rewards to make currency caps not so much of an issue? So they'll probably add more trophy crystal armor sets at some point, maybe new framer kits and stuff, new minions, whatever, new mounts. I don't know. They'll probably add something. But the big thing is they were supposed to, or at least they had mentioned at some point, adding actual series rewards, old ones, as stuff you could buy with trophy crystals in the future. We don't know how long we're going to have to wait for that, though. We weren't sure because we just don't have, there's been no mention of it since they initially said they wanted to prevent fear of missing out. So it's been kind of a weird spot. Wolfmarks, I have no idea what their plans are for the future. But I mean, yeah, they could, but it's a question of if they will. At the very least, I'd like materia to be in there. If it's not, I don't remember if it is, but that would be a bare minimum for me. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hello, Haps. Hi. Hope you're having a great jump off into the new year. Staying busy, and that's how I like it. Been raining it's been raining really bad in the Bay. It's really, really bad. I mean, need it, but, still, it's been very dangerous for people. Question: as of late, I've been noticing more and more players defaulting to Ether for Extreme, Savage, Rating, and Ultimate. On average, during prime time, I see 80 plus PFs on Ether and about 10 to 20 groups on Crystal. Crystal struggles with that anyway. Like Primal is still really busy as well in the Party Finder, and I actually hear that the new data center, I think it's Dynamis, is also doing fairly well in the PF because a lot of people are going there away from Ether as just trying to get away from kind of the excess. Ether is not necessarily a quality over quantity type situation. It's a lot of quantity and the quality is very, very mixed. So I've heard people going over to Dynamis to kind of narrow the gap, I suppose. That being said, Crystal has always had this issue where the amount of PFs are just way lower. It's just because it's largely seen as a role-playing or community-focused data center and less as a raiding one, even though there are some really hardcore raiders over there. They're definitely there. Just the volume is lower. So Aether's always been that spot ever since Gilgamesh became the hot spot for raiding back in the end of A Realm Reborn going into Heaven's Ward. It's just always been perpetuated as that. But we don't know how that'll go in any given patch. That could flip on a dime. Maybe Dynamis will suddenly become the place where the more experienced raiders go until people go over there, and then it shifts to another place, and yada, yada, yada. But I'm not worried about congestion. Congestion is always a concern, with Aether. But fortunately, we have ways around congestion now. When it comes to like having a static or something, you can go visit another data center. Yeah, you miss some of the commodities that you have, but they're not as important as they used to be. So I don't think it'll be a problem, or at least not any more of a problem than it already has been. And trust me, it's already been a problem. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hello, Happy Mister. Hello. When you're running around in-game in populated cities, how many players do you actively recognize? Well, I don't do this very often. Usually okay, a couple things. You're asking somebody who actually does something that makes this harder to answer. A lot of names and faces have been around for a long time, or are the majority of the masses still mysterious vagabonds? So the reason why it's mysterious vagabonds, I play with all names off, except for people on my friends list and people who are currently in my party. So I actually don't know anyone by name. And even the people in my party, I have their initials on. So I sometimes recognize a player here or there. And if they're on my friends list, then I definitely recognize them. But I have put myself in such a place that it is nearly impossible for me to recognize anyone because I don't know who any of them are. So it's a bit of a different place for me just because I like to get all the clutter of the names and the titles and all that stuff off my screen. Hashtag Happy Mystery Mondays. Hi, hello, what's up? Hey, hi, how you doing? I was going through Endwalker, MSQ on an alt. Upon rewatching some cutscenes, a question occurred to me. Is Hydaelyn actually a primal? Yes. That's the answer. 100%. She is. There's nothing else to think. We know she is. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Hey there, Mr. Yipha. I know it's happy backwards, but it's got to try. Recently tried swapping a ninja as my main melee DPS, and I've been practicing my rotation on a dummy and in Abyssos, but I feel like I'm not doing as much damage as I should be. Sure, I may make some mistakes here or there. So, actually, let me read the rest first. But I feel like I hit a wall in terms of improving my damage. XV analysis is kind of hit or miss for me. Ninja being such a complicated job with small intricacies like holding trick for certain fights and so many different rotations. What would be your advice at getting better with the job? I mean, it's practice. The answer is always practice. It's research and practice. I will say this. Historically, I'm not saying with you, but historically, maybe with you, I don't know. Every time somebody says, I may make a mistake here or there, it means you don't know what your mistakes are, or you're writing them off as a small mistake. I wouldn't do that, personally. You need to take every mistake as what it is, a mistake, and understand how they all add up to the end of a fight. Now, I will say this. Another thing is a lot of people make the mistake of comparing like random party finder parties with people who may not be playing optimally, or places with lots of deaths, or it make comparisons to that kind of stuff with players who are playing in static groups, and you're like only looking at like the 95 percentiles and the 98 percentiles on the top. You want to be looking between the 50 and 75 mark as like a really good initial goal. Anything after 75 is exceptional, and then in the 90s and upper 90s, it comes down to honestly crit RNG and very exact precise play. So those can be a little bit of a grind to get an actual super high rank at that point. But the 50 to 75 mark shows a clear understanding of the job and the gameplay on an okay run. Like everything can be okay and you can get that kind of score. So that's where I'd say is a good initial place to aim for when you're trying to improve on a job. But don't just say, you know, some mistakes are here and there, and not understand what those mistakes are and what the result of that mistake is. Like you mentioned, not knowing when to hold trick. If you throw trick out and the boss disappears and everyone else is holding their twos, you're fucked. That's it. Your damage is shot. You've just lost an entire 2 minute. And also, I'm sorry, mug on 2 minutes. Let me be more accurate. If you don't know when to do your mug or hold trick, and then you're just losing entire, that's big. That kind of mistake is enormous because you need your buff windows in order to properly create outliers in your DPS, which bumps your average up. So sounds like that actually might be your point to start on, is educating yourself on fights and growing that muscle memory more. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hey Haps, another longtime viewer, first-time commenter asking, welcome. Now that Endwalker is wrapped up in the main story, Creative Business Division 3 shifted gears to unresolved elements that were side effects of what happened so far. The Mogstone refreshed some of us with places... You mean the tomes? The Mogstone refresh some of us with places like... Oh, that's a YouTube channel, I assume. Which also happens to be closely related to the 13th already in the Eorzea lands before today. However, contrary to Shadowbringers, that Square Enix basically forced us to do Crystal Tower, there was no push for ensuring the Shadows of Mach series was known or understood beforehand. Would you feel more folks revisited went through the Sky Pirates chain, or so it could be improved the reception of the latest? No, because nothing we did there has any impact on what we've been doing here. I will say that it's interesting seeing that the player character should understand that death is really temporary when it comes to Void Scent. We have known that already, but that the rest of the Scions are they're kind of more largely learning that now. So, no, but I think other than that singular fact, there's really no overlap between the two in the importance of their stories. Like, you don't need to know anything that happens in Shadow of Mach to understand anything that's happening in the current MSQ. So I think that's why. It's not like Crystal Tower where, you know, at first they made it optional, but then they decided that that wasn't good enough and they really wanted to make it mandatory so you could have a better connection to the characters. There's no overlap like that with Shadows of Mach and the MSQ. So and until there is, I don't see them ever going out of their way to do it. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hello, Happy. Hi. I was wondering if we're getting a new map to gather in 6.3 or if it just be a new map dungeon. As they've stated in the live letter and has now been stated in the letter from the producer. I'm sorry. The patch notes. Sorry. Letter from the producer live and the patch notes have both stated it is a new map. So you're going to need to gather the new ones to go to the Shifting Gymnasium. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hi, Haps. Hi. Hope you're doing well. Same. I've been slowly leveling up every job to 60 for Garo gear achievements, and I'm currently working on Monk. I must say I've been discouraged after hearing that this job is super heavy on positionals, but now I see that Monk is super fun to play. Whoever's been telling you it's super heavy on positionals, that is old news. It has not been since 6.0. It only has 2 positionals. Dragoon has 3 positionals, as a matter of fact. So, yeah, no, that's just outdated information, which is fine. You know, you might get sources or information from people who either haven't played it since 6.0 or the information itself could be from like an old video. Just something to bear in mind. I love how much AoE I have. Yeah, the AoE on Monk feels really good while you're leveling. How skill animations feel like they're hitting strong. Do you have some tips on how to improve Monk? Because I feel like I'll level up more than just until 60. Well, there's plenty of guides and information on it, but the big thing is understanding how to get into your 2-minute windows at level 90. It's a little bit weird to do at the early levels. You know, before you even hit 60, you'll get perfect balance, but you won't have blitzes. And then you'll get blitzes, but you won't have like some other tools. Like you won't have all the tools to really map out what your rotation looks like until you get to level 80, really. That's where you can have it fully mapped out. You just won't have that, you just won't be at full speed, I think. Is GL4 after 80? I think it is, yeah. Either way, it's just about knowing how to get into your 2-minute window, regardless of what GCD you're going in on. So that requires you understanding what your conditions are for understanding your 2-minute window, and also still striving to get an ideal 2-minute window, even if you have like interruptions to your rotation because of boss mechanics. That's very, very important. Also, whenever you are experiencing downtime, don't press nothing. At least be charging your chakra stacks or be form shifting. You do one or the other at the bare minimum, or both realistically, especially if you have the time to do that. But keep in mind the way that you play at 50, 60, 70, 80, that's going to change constantly. So don't get too used to it, but at least understand how the skills work up to that point. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. A week late, but Happy New Year. Hey, it is still 2023, so you're not late as far as I'm concerned. So Happy New Year back to you. 2 questions today. Okay, 1, I don't own YouTube Premium, but the amount of ads overall is making me think about getting it. I have it. I cannot imagine not having it. If a viewer is on Premium, do you know how content creators get money since they wouldn't be getting anything from an ad view? I want to continue supporting channels I'm sub to. Yes, so if you have YouTube Premium, then your watch minutes become the largest factor into a YouTuber's earnings. So if you're watching an entire video while you have YouTube Premium, that the creators should earn more. Now, it's a little more complicated than that. Excuse me while I try to dig into my memory banks, but I think what it is the platform looks at the overall watch minutes, the overall people who have YouTube Premium that influence those watch minutes, and also the amount of watch minutes that individual streamer got, and it like does a calculation that I don't entirely understand. So it's not like it's just your YouTube watch minutes on my channel. I think it's just like by doing that, you qualify the channel for a greater income. It's pretty nice. Like YouTube Premium income alone is normally, you know, it's not as much as just regular ad revenue is on YouTube, but it's, you know, normally a few $100 on top of everything else. And I assume not everyone on my channel is like watching it. I guess I don't have a percentage. Maybe there is one. I haven't looked in a while. A percentage total of people who use YouTube Premium. There's a few $100, you know, and if it's between that and not making any ad revenue because people are blocking or are just not watching the videos or whatever because there's ads, I'll definitely take a few $100 over nothing. I'll tell you that. Number 2, Final Fantasy 14 question. If the action page puts a dot on an enemy, or if the action that puts a dot on an enemy crits or direct hits, do the damage over time ticks do more damage? No. Every individual dot tick has a chance to direct hit or critically hit. So that's the application of you having a critical or direct hit rate buff improves the rate at which the dot can critically or direct hit, but it's still every individual tick is its own chance of triggering that effect. So thanks for all your content. Looking forward to the new year. Hey, thanks for watching, and same to you. Hashtag lunes con Senor Feliz. Okay, so you didn't just say with, so it confused me for a second. But no, that's good. Greetings from Spain. You doing all right? I hope I'm doing all right. You doing all right? I'm doing all right. I hope everything's going super well. It's going. You know, I'm just doing my best at the moment. Okay, my question is short compared to other weeks. Why do you hate the Nier raid so much? I love the game, and I love to revisit these moments in 14 when it comes in roulette. Didn't you like the game? Wasn't a follower when it came up, so I don't know if you played it. Okay, a couple things. One, the story of Nier I like, and I do go all the way back to Drakengard 1, so I know all the connections. I know Seeds of Destruction. And as much as it loathes me to say, I know the events from like the stories between the games and Drakengard and the other Drakengard games and Nier 1. I know it, and I know how 14 ties into it, so I'm not lacking in knowledge. In terms of the Nier game itself, I actually am not a fan of Platinum Games as a developer. I've enjoyed games like Revengeance, and I've had brief spurts of enjoying some of their games. Like Astral Chain was okay for a little bit, just it was on the Nintendo Switch, so it didn't run super great. But the Nier raids in 14, I hate. And by the way, this would be true if it wasn't the Nier raids. If it was like a different franchise, like let's say Yokai Watch was our raid tier. I know, not as beloved of. I guess I should go as Devil May Cry. Let's say Devil May Cry. We had an entire raid tier of Devil May Cry. I would still be, on principle, annoyed as much as I love Devil May Cry, and it's my second favorite franchise because I'm not playing Final Fantasy XIV to play Devil May Cry. I'm not playing Final Fantasy XIV to learn more about the Devil May Cry universe. I don't need the Devil May Cry universe to exist in my Final Fantasy XIV universe and basically eliminate an expansion's worth of lore, an expansion's worth of world expansion to Final Fantasy XIV, to Eorzea, to Hydaelyn, to the first in the case of Nier. And that's what it did, because none of that stuff has any relevance. It basically exists in a pocket location in Final Fantasy XIV, and that's it. It's done. It has no impact on anything else, any sort of remote importance. Is it cool that the Nier stuff got expanded upon in such a way that really does create a much more direct and interesting lore tie between Drakengard and Nier? One that already existed, but like one that's way more important to the overarching story of the Taraverse, or whatever you want to call it. Sure, that's cool. Is it what I wanted in Final Fantasy XIV? No. Now, to top it all off, I think most of the bosses are shit. Most of them are pretty bad. The very first raid, and some of this is the bosses are bad, some of this is the downscaled stats that we got this expansion make them slogs when you go back to them now. Like, they take longer now than they did back then, which is really annoying. For the first one, Copied Factory, first boss, really don't care. Second boss, really don't care. Third boss, really, really don't care. Like, they're cool references, sure, but they're just not fun bosses. The fourth boss, actually, pretty fun. I like him. He's good. 9S, you get points. The second raid, actually, the what's it called? Puppet's Bunker. I actually like that. I do overall like that raid. I think the bosses are more fun. I think it has the hallway sequence, which is great. and it has some banger tracks. So I actually give Puppet's Bunker a bit of a pass. I think it's an overall well-made, but it's still a little annoying. Doing it now takes longer than it did back then. And the second boss isn't that fun. It's not bad, but it's not like standout-ish. But the other 3 bosses I actually really like. And then Tower Paradigm's Breach, I would burn it in a fire if I could. The first boss is boring. The trash before the last boss is basically the first boss again, and I couldn't believe that they did that. The second boss, it was okay conceptually, but it really hasn't aged well, and it's not really all that much. Again, I don't think it's that fun. Third boss, really fun. Fourth boss, Phase 1, pretty boring. Phase 2, okay, but no better than like 9S from the first tier. So I think most of the bosses suck. I think the fact that the story completely takes an expansion away from 14 sucks. I actually think that the way that the story is told, the direct part of the story, the underlying elements of the Nier raid are done well for the overall like Draken Nier lore that's going on. But the way the story is told, the direct to the player story, I think it's terrible. Absolutely god awful. Even reading between the lines, that's not fun. I'd rather just look at the last boss in Paradigm's Breach. That one boss, her Inflorescence, I think is called, has more story and lore implications and importance than like 99% of everything else that happens in the story. Just the existence of that boss. And that's pretty nuts. Hey, Hopes. I know you wrote this on your phone because I've seen Haps turn into Hope before, so I gotcha. You doing all right? I'm doing all right. You doing all right? Yeah, you doing all right. I just had a stupid thought. It's a good precedent. Okay, let's see. Why not just make Enhanced Unmend into Enhanced Bloodspiller Quietus and give it the same effect? Would literally be a much more useful trait. You mean so Enhanced... Wait, so Enhanced Unmend is when you unmend, you get the cooldown reduced on Plunge, right? Because that's not what they want to do. If they do that, they have to take potency off on something. This is a big thing. And I don't think people want that either. I don't think people want more plunges in exchange for like reduced blood spiller and or quietus potency. And you know, it's funny, there are at least 1 or 2 fights where Enhanced Unmend is actually a potential DPS gain, but only because of the way the mechanics make you do it. But yeah, no, I can't defend Enhanced Unmend. But I know that they won't do that, what you've suggested, in the current expansion for the reason I said. They would probably have to make an actual potency adjustment and bring like 10 points off of Blood Spiller or something, and nobody wants to see that. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hello, hi, and say hi to your mom for me. I don't think my mom's going to know who you are if I say hi for you, but I'll just say that there was a hi in my weekly Q&A. You decided the job you're going to prog Omega Protocol with? Yeah, it's been Dancer for like the last 2 months. You're trying to go for World First? I haven't been in the World First game in quite some time. I go hardcore. And yeah, if going hardcore were to lead to World First, sure, great, grand. I think by streaming, I innately put myself at a disadvantage, and that is something that has been proven is very important for the teams that do actually come out on top. So I never like to say it's World First. If I were to consequently get one, sure. Am I trying any less because it's hardcore prog and not World First prog? No, I'd be putting my all into it regardless. So it's just a matter of, you know, would the stars align? Is it the right team? Is it the right thing? But I just say we're doing hardcore prog, you know, 16 hours a day until it's beat, and then I don't have to touch it except for weekly re-clears for, you know, a very, very long time. And I do plan on doing weekly re-clears for Protocol. We only did one weekly re-clear for DSR because our scheduling was ass. And I as much as I wanted more, I was kind of glad to step away. This one, I have a feeling that's not going to be the case. So I'm looking forward to it. Just expect a lot of updates on the channel. Hashtag Mr. Emotionally Positive Mondays. Hey, you know what? I'll take it. Hi, Haps. Hi. Got sort of an MSQ job fantasy related question. Sure. As an Omni Healer fan, it's always a bit difficult to get into the Warrior of Light role as a healer. It seems like a job focused around whatever flavor of destructive power would be the most appropriate to destroy the enemies and a big monster that the Warrior of Light fights across the MSQ. It seems odd playing through the MSQ with a mostly healing based set of powers. You've mentioned playing White Mage in the past, so I'm unsure if it was through MSQ. What are your thoughts on this? I always just take some of the scenes as funny. You know, you have the occasional scene break where you're a healer and they're like, quick, cure him. And then like another NPC runs in to do it and you're like, what the heck? Why not me? However, I think there is one scene that they recently redid where you actually do try to cast Cure, or at least it's suggested that you do. They turn to your character and ask you. But I otherwise don't care. Like, I'm a lot... Do you know how weird the final cutscene, the fisticuffs scene, is at the end of Endwalker, when you're a Lalafell, somehow you're throwing hands with somebody who's like 6 feet taller than you, and you're punching them in the face even though you're standing at ground level. I've just kind of learned to accept the absurdity and just know that, yeah, I'm the shit, and that's not going to change. All right, so I'm going to be real with you. I'm doing the rest as a lightning round because I spent the last 10 minutes trying to read through a reply thread that was happening regarding damage over time skills, and my brain is melted. There was a question about, like, why does every healer have a dot? The person doesn't like dots. They'd rather have, like, a 1-2-3 combo or even just another spammable button that isn't a dot. And the discussion that happened under there pretty much is what I would have said, just in an untruncated form of just, it's a form of DPS management. It doesn't require a whole lot of buttons to do, and it's really no more or less interesting than having another spammable button or a combo. They're both like the bare minimum to achieve. So it also, you can get more damage per GCD on a dot usually than on a spammable skill. So that way of the maintenance of said skill applies some degree of skill. All of these things are said in the discussion, but again, it's literally, I want to copy and paste some of this into a document and see how many words it was, because it is a full-blown, like in-depth, deep discussion that, like, it's like a thesis, like, back and forth that it's so here. You know what? In fact, even for the lightning round, I'll bring it back. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I'm glad to see people doing that, but I'm trying to get you where my head's at, where I was like, okay, it's time to answer the next question. And then there was this, and I was just like, dude, I was just gonna say like one or two things. I'm glad these two had a discussion. It wasn't vitriolic or anything, but I want you to know where I'm at. And that wasn't all of it, by the way. There was a little bit more, not that much more, but a little bit more. So yeah, that's my answer to the dot question. There was also somebody who was trying to ask about like an easy to play DPS. If you've never played DPS, and I would say Summoner. Summoner is definitely my go-to answer for that. Not too many buttons, really simple to understand. Only thing you can really screw up is stuff with Ifrit, like gap closing by accident or not understanding that you can't do the long cast times, which you usually learn that lesson pretty quick, and then it's just about ingraining habits into your own play. There are other jobs I think are also really easy. Another one would be Red Mage, of course. And I think, honestly, like Dragoon's straightforwardness, while it has a lot of OGCDs, its straightforwardness makes it a little more approachable than I think some other jobs. But Summoner's definitely at the absolute top of my list for that one. Somebody said they had a question regarding an upcoming potential class. I will say this, when there's something like this, unless it's based on something that's happening in-game, I struggle with these types of questions because they are largely speculation or like wish fulfillment. Like you like, oh, I would love to see this, and it's like, what do you think about that? And it's just like, what I think is, I don't like to think is more or less relevant than what another player thinks, because what I think doesn't make what happens in the game happen. You know, like, yeah, fan player feedback and like long time requests from like the player base as a whole do, but for questions like that, it's hard for me to add anything sort of meaningfully, because any idea I have, any idea you have, I mean, they're fun to share. They really are. We all want to do it. Everyone kind of envisions their own jobs and their own job fantasy that may or may not already be in the game, or adjustments they would make. And that's a fun, but in like a Q&A setting, it's hard for me to have a meaningful discussion and or provide anything that's like sort of meaningful in return to what I'm reading. So that's it. Like that's the thing that I struggle with on that front. It's hard to do in this format. And then there's a couple other things. Why do you always like the hello? Well, it's good manners, and I like to encourage good manners. You know, it's like when somebody like, sometimes like when I'm Twitch streaming, for example, someone will come in and just be like, "Hey, cutie pie," and I'll be like, "What the fuck?" If somebody said that to me on the street, I'd be like, "Who the fuck are you?" I wouldn't be like, "Hi," you know what I mean? So it's like I respond the same way. I'm like, "Don't call me that. What? I don't know who you are." What? That's weird. You would never say that to a stranger. Maybe at a club, but I ain't at no fucking club. I ain't a piece of meat. So it's the same thing. It's like, you know, it's good manners to say hi before you ask someone. Like, imagine if you were sitting at your office, right? And I'm sure this has happened to people work in retail or customer service. You ever, and let's say you were working customer service, say, hello, this is company name, I'm here to help you. What can I do? And if the person just goes, yeah, so you done fucked up, instead of being like, hi, my name is this and this, and I was having this issue with this. Like, it's kind of just like a basic manners thing. So it's not really that big a deal, but I like to try and encourage it. And what's your favorite non-Final Fantasy meme? That's tough. I actually don't like Final Fantasy memes. Like, there's very few that I find interesting. Like, yeah, maybe there's one that's like a flavor of like the month or like the week or something that's recently applicable because like Yoshi P did. So like maybe, but almost all memes that aren't Final Fantasy memes I like more. Oh, you know what? I have a meme that is applicable to not just Final Fantasy, but I love the meme format of it. You love this thing so much, name 10 people from that franchise. So like the first place I saw that was Final Fantasy related, but I've since seen a lot. That's Brooklyn Nine-Nine with Zoe Deschanel and who's that guy who's the lead guy from Lonely Island? Adam something? Either way. Where he says that, where she says that, yeah, you love it so much, name 10 of this, and then he says one thing, but it covers all 10 of the qualifications. So like with Final Fantasy, it would be like, oh yeah, you love Final Fantasy so much, name 10 Final Fantasy characters right now. Sid! That was too easy. I set the bar too low. I love that. That's one of my all-time favorites. So that's a Final Fantasy example, but I love that when I see it for other things as well. So it's just the format as a whole. Let's see. Hey, Haps, how's it going? Did you drink water? I have Advanced GG Hydration Formula, which has tons of vitamins and minerals that are great for you while also making your water taste better. It also only has, I think, 2 grams of sugar? Yeah, it only has 2 grams of total sugars, but it also has vitamin B. Man, this font is really small and my eyes are not working right now. Vitamin B3, B6, B12, what was that? Pantothenic acid, calcium, magnesium, sodium, potassium. I actually need more magnesium in my diet now that you mentioned that. But yes, this is my water that I'm drinking right now, and you can get yours for 30% off right now by going into the description and using the link there and using the discount code MrHappy30. If the 30% code doesn't work, don't worry, the 10% code always works, and that's just the discount code MrHappy. The question, what would your nightmare ultimate be? Just doing more DSR is my nightmare ultimate right now. Okay. And that was actually the last question. All the other comments are just about stuff we talked about last week, the whole pride thing, and somebody saying my mom's gonna have 1,000 pizzas. Funny story about that. So what I did is I set up something called Treat Stream over on Twitch, and people could buy my mother lunch or groceries, and it's been largely successful. People have been buying her like peanut butter, bread, chicken sandwiches from McDonald's, pizza. Actually, she got a pizza sent to her today, and she didn't know it. And then I called her. I was like, hey, did you get that pizza that was sent? And she was like, pizza? And then she looked outside, and there was just a pizza there that had been there for probably like 20, 25 minutes. And she's like, oh, nice. I'm going to heat this up and eat it right now. Thank you. And like I said, that should be temporary. I don't really want to use that service for just me after everything with my mother is settled. But really appreciate how everyone's been, because it's been on my mind a lot. And it's really tough sometimes doing all this content stuff and not speaking my mind about some of these things. So I appreciate largely the response to all that stuff. It's been great. I mean, since last year, it's been absolutely nutty. Apologies that it keeps coming up. I know you're probably sick of hearing about it, but when you're in my position, you just can't believe how kind of well it's gone, given the situation that it is. You can't help but feel like no matter how much you thank people, it's never enough. And I am definitely in that boat. So thank you again to those of you who have ordered pizzas or chicken sandwiches or peanut butter or bread or whatever you've been sending my mother over the past couple of weeks, because it has been a lifesaver for her. But with that, that's going to be a wrap for this week's episode of Mondays with Mr. Happy. Be sure to ask your questions for next week. Be sure to like, favorite, subscribe, and share. And stay tuned for all the patch 6.3 content we've got coming on the horizon. Also, be sure to go subscribe to the VOD channel. There's a bunch of stuff coming up on there over the next couple of weeks as well. Anyway, I'll see all of you in the next one. And until then, take care.